you can imagine that we jump in a time machine and we go back to the agricultural age. And we head back 250 years ago, and we arrive at a time where if we hop out of our time machine and we walk around and start meeting people and asking them what it is they do, chances are you get some very different responses to the responses you just got tonight. You'd find that the vast majority of people were working in farming. They were working on the land, and that's why it was called the agricultural age. It was defined by the fact that most people are working on the land. Now, there came a time at the end of the agricultural age where they invented steam engines, they invented fossil fuels, they invented machinery. And you could imagine that some of the people who initially got it, who were the first ones to understand what was happening at the time, were sitting around having these exciting conversations. They're sitting there saying, you know, Nancy, I can't believe this. I've got one tractor, and this one tractor does the work of 100 people. I used to have 100 people who ploughed that field, and now I have one piece of machinery that does that for me. I can't believe what's going on. And Nancy says, well, I can't believe it either. We used to have hundreds of people producing textiles, and now we have one machine that just pumps out all of these textiles. And, you know, it's hard to believe how fast things are moving and how things are changing. And we might have said at that time, it's almost as if we're heading into a different age. I feel sorry for anyone who doesn't see what's going on, we might have said. Because the people who are still ploughing the field with their shovel and their rakes and things like that are going to be in a whole heap of trouble. Because we're not going to need so many people ploughing the field now that we've got this new technology. And then sure enough, we entered into the Industrial Revolution age. Now the Industrial Revolution was an interesting time because it sort of separated the world into a couple of different groups of people. The first group of people were the ones who were from very wealthy families and who saw what was happening, and they saw what was going on with technology, and they invested their money into a factory. And a factory is the place where we have the means of production. We can actually create value within a factory. So it's a value producing place in the world. And what was interesting is that there was a second group of people, and the second group of people were those who could not afford to start a factory. So regardless of the fact that they might have seen what was happening, they might have seen the machinery, they might have seen the tractors and the fossil fuels and those sorts of things, if you couldn't afford to set up a factory, you weren't able to own your own labour. You couldn't have the means of production to capture the value that you could create. So there were factory owners and there were factory workers. Now what this set up was a strange dynamic. It meant that the factory workers were very much just a part of the machine. They were very much replaceable. You pull one person out, you put another person in, and the machine keeps going. Because these people were so replaceable, you could pay them just enough to survive. And even though they were creating vast amounts of value, some factories were making 30 or 40 times the wages they were paying the staff off the top of each person. Because each person couldn't afford their own means of production, all the value evaporated up into the factory roof and went across to the factory owner. And the factory owner got to capture all of that value within the factory, and they became vastly wealthy. So we know these people in history as the industrialists. The industrialists became ridiculously wealthy compared to the working class people. And the only way they could regain some power was to form unions and things like that. Right? So this was the Industrial Revolution. Now the evolution of that is that it started out as factory labour, people working with machines, and it ended up as white-collar factory labour. So I refer to a factory as anything where you sit at a workstation and you do a repetitive task and you're not capturing the value that you're creating. Right? So we have factories today that look like big corporates that do white-collar work. We have giant accounting firms that are factories. We have giant consulting firms that are effectively the evolution of Industrial Revolution factories. But interestingly enough, right now, at this point in history, there are certain people having conversations. And they're sitting there going, I can't believe this. I've got one little computer system that's going out and doing the work of things that people used to do. I can't believe this. I'm setting up a little business and I've found clients all over the world. I can't believe this. I've got a home-based business and I'm able to communicate with people free of charge using YouTube. And there are people right now who are kind of getting it that something is very different. Something's changing. Once again, technology has come to the forefront and is taking us out of the Industrial Revolution and into something completely different. I think by the end of the night you're going to hear about what I call the entrepreneur revolution, and you'll see it as a very real trend that's unfolding. It's an unstoppable trend that's happening all over the world. We're noticing that countries that were developing countries are actually now developing super fast because of their entrepreneurs. Countries that were in poverty are lifting up because they're empowering entrepreneurs, little grassroots entrepreneurs. We're noticing that the growth in this economy is coming from grassroots entrepreneurs. Right? And we're starting to see this incredible shift where highly talented, highly valuable people are preferring not to go and work in a factory, but instead they're going out and starting their own small businesses. We're seeing that highly valuable people and highly talented people are choosing, rather than to work with some huge corporation, they want to work on a small entrepreneurial team of maybe 10 or 15 people and feel deeply connected to the work that they're doing and the people they're working with. Right? So we're seeing some huge changes. The entrepreneur revolution's in full swing. The other huge trend you're going to notice over the next few years is something that I refer to as the global small business. You're going to see teams of 5 or 10 valuable people who are running global businesses from small offices anywhere in the world. You'll see extraordinarily well-developed personal brands and business brands that have reach to customers and clients in many different countries. You'll see people opening up to tiny little niches. You'll see someone who's a multi-millionaire because they provide information on vegetarian bodybuilding or some tiny little thing that you've never heard of. Right? These tiny new little niches are going to emerge. So there will be the rise of the global small business. Global small business owners will be able to work from anywhere. Most of their business will exist in the cloud. Global small business owners may have highly talented people in different countries that they've never physically met, and yet they co-create and collaborate together. Right? So it's an extraordinary little string of words, global small business. Never before in history would you have been able to put those words together and have it mean anything. And yet today, when I say the words global small business, all of you go, yeah, I can see that. That's happening. Right? So something is happening that's different. We're talking about it tonight. So I want to stay in the past for now, and I want to share with you the lead up to the entrepreneur revolution and the technology that's making it possible. And I want to use historical trends and the way that technology impacts our economy to project forward and look forward in the next 10 years and identify some huge opportunities for yourself as well. So let's go back to the late 1800s, where the telephone was invented. It was actually 1890s that the telephone was an invention. And the telephone took 20 to 30 years before it was adopted as a regular commonplace piece of technology. We think of it as a 1920s device where we see people starting to use it in any great way. The telephone gave way to multiple location businesses. So you find that prior to the telephone, it was very difficult to have multiple locations. So you had cottage industry shops. When the telephone comes on board, we can actually communicate with more suppliers over greater distances. We can have different locations. And we see that business changes 20 to 30 years after the impact of the telephone. And looking back on history, it's quite clear. In the 1920s, commercial airlines became available. And commercial airlines allowed people to set up businesses, and we started seeing businesses in the 1940s, 20 to 30 years, having interstate and international businesses growing as a result of having the ability to move around, really nicely and easily. Believe it or not, it was the 1930s that television came along, but we think about it, it was the 1950s phenomenon. So in the 1950s, business figured out that it could dominate the airwaves with something called a brand. So we had the Marlboro man, we had Coca-Cola. We started to see that whoever got onto the television and dominated the 4 or 5 channels could literally control a market. with their brand and get consumers to spend. Now, they could control the market and limit the amount of products that were in the market through their channels just by controlling that one channel, that television. Because back then, there was television, there was radio, there wasn't all that much to dominate. If you could dominate it, you could have a national brand. But it was 20 to 30 years before that emerged as a trend. The 1960s was the first time people talked about personal computers, and we saw computer workstations. But it was 20 to 30 years later that we saw the personal computer revolution. We saw in the 1980s and the 1990s, 20 to 30 years, that the personal computer really took off. Now, if you probe deep and you dug deep at that time, in the 90s you would have started to see the emergence, the very beginning of the emergence of small home-based businesses. They were coming back into the marketplace because the computer allowed a small business to not look so small. You could print your own brochures. You could send professional-looking letters. Right? People didn't instantly know that you weren't operating from a corporate office. Right? So we started to see that there was this trend kicking off in alignment with these personal computers. In 1979, Motorola released a combination device. It was a mobile phone and a microwave all at once. And in 1979, it was something that very few people had, multi-millionaires, stockbrokers, all of those sorts of things. But 15 to 20 years later, everyone had a mobile phone. 95, 96, 97, 98 was this huge upswing of mobile phones, and it changed the way business was done. Because for the first time you could be mobile, you could be contactable from wherever you were. Right? These are the footsteps that were leading up to what I call the global small business. 1990s. In fact, it was the year 1990 that Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web and released the World Wide Web to the world. And yet it's actually, I think, when we look back in history, it's only really in the 2000s and up until 2010 that we actually will see that the internet became part of every business. Do you know that 20% of the UK population still haven't gotten connected to the internet? Right? It's only really in the late 2000s that people are shopping online. People are doing business easily online. It's only 2008, 2009 where we start seeing people ordering their groceries online and really using the internet for every transaction and understanding every transaction as it relates to the internet. So it's that 15 to 20 year gap again that we start seeing. In 2000, Google took off. It was 98 that they launched it. 2000 it starts taking off, and we start seeing everything gets connected. All the information in the world gets organized and freely searchable. And that is going to have a huge impact on the way business is happening from now over the next 10 years. Right? Just what Google did as a novelty in the year 2000 is going to be a game changer over the next 10 years. But I believe that we're still seeing those sort of impacts and those sorts of waves. In the mid-2000s, 2004, 2005, social media was born. Not only is all the information organized, now all the people on the planet are organized. We now understand who's interested in what topics. We start connecting not because of geography, but because of ideology. I connect with you because I know we share common interests, not because you're the next door neighbor or the person who works on the bench next to me at the factory. Right? So it changes everything once again. We're going to see over the next 15 to 20 years huge impacts from this. 2008 was the birth of something called the mobile web. Mobile web connects everyone and everything. It means that all information and all people are accessible in your pocket. You can pull out your mobile phone device and access any information you want and any person that you want to access as well. We're seeing, with the mobile web, we're seeing aeroplanes connect to the internet and feed information to an app where you can watch the aeroplane flying around the world and know what time to pick up your friend from the airport. We're seeing developers launching apartments that come with their own app. Did I leave the lights on? Oh, better turn them off. Right? What temperature is it in the home? Better cool it down because it's a bit warm. Right? Oh, I wonder what's happening with the webcam. I'll have a look at the webcam in my home. Right? We're seeing that all people are connected all the time. Right? There's not the 9 to 5 anymore. The edges are blurring. Right? Some people are actually working 5 till 9. What does this mean? Let's project forward to the future. If we know that the big impact comes, 10, 15, 20 years after these technologies are introduced, what does this mean for us and looking over the next couple of years ahead? So in the future, everyone and everything is connected. Now that seems like such a standard, self-evident statement now, but what's interesting about that is that when everyone and everything's connected, your competition could be anywhere. Who saw in the newspaper last week that the telecommunications giant Orange told its employees that if they wanted to keep their job, they had to move to Manila? Yeah? And there's 2,500 staff who were told, well, that's okay, you can keep working for us, but you've got to go out to Manila. And I said, what do you mean we go out to Manila? And they said, oh, there's one other catch that pays £200 per month, plus laundry and food allowance. And they said, well, that's not fair. And Orange said, it's actually not fair on our customers if we don't do that. Right? We can't be paying £3,000 a month or £2,500 a month when we could be paying £200 a month. So it's not fair on our customers to not outsource that. So there's a group of people, 2,500 people last week, who didn't realise that they were in competition with a group of people in Manila. Now it's funny to think, oh, isn't that a funny story for them? But guess what? It's not them. It's all of us. Right? If I am interested in a person or a thing, it doesn't matter where it is now. If the best person for the job is in Bangalore, Manila, Sydney, Brisbane, California, Toronto, it doesn't matter anymore. They show up just as quick. If the thing that I need, the product that I need, happens to be anywhere in the world, it can show up just as quick. Everyone and everything is connected. It also means that people all over the world could be looking for you. You've got to make a decision about your business. Do I want to be local or do I want to be global? Because it's just as easy to do both. In fact, it's actually a bit cheaper to be global than it is to be local. In the future, big companies are going to have a hard time competing with small companies. Big companies are slow. They're bureaucratic. Their staff aren't inspired. Their staff aren't thinking. Their staff use the word staff and boss. Right? Small companies are dynamic. They use the word team. They collaborate. Good ideas bounce around. Things get implemented quickly. Products can become niche and special and get into their little tiny niches. The biggest companies in the world over the last 5 to 10 years are actually big businesses that made their business model partner with little businesses. Facebook partners with 600 million little individuals and loads of little businesses. Amazon partners with all the authors of the world, little people who have written books. Right? eBay partners with all the people who have got garage sales and little stores around the world. So these huge businesses over the last 5 to 10 years are actually big businesses that have made their business to partner and support little individuals and people and businesses, little businesses. So big companies that are trying to do leadership are failing, and small businesses that are into partnership are succeeding. In the future, no one has a job anymore. We all become suppliers and producers. So people who see themselves as, I'm an accountant, right? So I should just have a job because I'm an accountant, because I got a piece of paper that says I'm an accountant. Right? That model's out. The new model is, I provide accounting services to businesses in the retail sector that are going through transition, right? Or that are opening multiple stores. That's how you think when you're a supplier or a producer. You think about your results. You don't think about just the process that you perform over and over. That's Industrial Revolution thinking. You think about, what is it that I'm here to do? What am I up to in the world? Right? Hollywood gets this. In Hollywood, people don't think of themselves as, I have a job working on the Die Hard set. They see themselves as a supplier or a producer to certain types of movies. I'm a specialist at blowing things up that are made of glass. Any film that needs that, I'm your guy. I go in there and I do that. Do it on this film, and then I go off and do it on another film. Right? I'm a specialist in lighting romantic scenes. I go on this romantic comedy and then this TV show, but they understand that they're a supplier and a producer, and it's not about a job. This means that in the future, careers are over. My grandfather had a career. He worked for one company for 40 years. He started on the factory floor. He was a technician. He then worked his way all the way up over 40 years, became the general manager of that factory. One job, one career for 40 years. Right? That's never going to happen for myself or my sister. Right? Over the next 10, 20 years. This career idea is dead. Instead of building a career, we must build a personal brand built upon a micro niche. If you want to safeguard your ability to earn now and in the future, you build yourself a brand. When people Google you, what happens? That's your brand. When your name comes up in conversation, that's your brand. When I ask, what is it that Tony's reliable at achieving again and again and again? What can he definitely get results for? And Ron says, he can get results with this, this, and this. That's Tony's brand. Right? So we need to build a brand. And that's more powerful than a career. That will give you your career. In the future, marketing budgets must become remarkable budgets. From 1950 to 2000, whoever did the most marketing down the channel won the business. Let's say I want to market my new product, which is a digital SLR camera. And I take out a half-page ad or a full-page ad saying, this is the best digital SLR camera. You've got to buy Canon digital SLR cameras. Right? And I market it and market it and market it. Well, 20, 30 years ago, Harun would have seen the ad and gone out and bought the camera. But he doesn't do that today. Today he sees the ad, and then what? He goes and he Googles it. And when he Googles it, he goes and looks at the star rating on Amazon. He goes to the photographic community website and finds out what the experts are saying about this camera. He discovers that there's a more remarkable model for his budget. And which one does he buy? The one with the highest star rating and the one that is crowdsourced as being the most remarkable. So the person who's doing the most marketing is only getting people to ask the question, who's got the most remarkable product in this space? Companies that are being remarkable are growing like wildfire, and companies that are spending a fortune on marketing are dying off one at a time. Right? So take your marketing budget and ask yourself the question, what would we be spending this money on if we were going to make this product so great that people had to talk about it? Right? The money that you would spend on marketing is now better spent on making your product so great that people can't help but talk about it. The huge thing you're going to see is the emergence of key people of influence. In a confusing, cluttered, information overloaded world, we want to know who the expert is. When we think about buying a camera, we want to go and find out who's the expert in photography. When we think about going on holiday, we want to know who's the expert. Right? When we think about fashion, we want to know who's the expert. When we don't just think about fashion now, we think about, I want to know fashion for my demographic, my interests, my group, my tribe, right, my niche. So you're going to see the emergence of key people of influence. And key people of influence are going to capture so much wealth. Because a key person of influence, let's imagine there was a key person of influence for small business, and they were based in, Birmingham. Well, previously, they would have had influence in Birmingham. Today, they have easily influence in the UK doing almost exactly what they used to do. So those who develop themselves as key people of influence are attracting opportunity from much further geography than ever before. More far and wide. This is one of the most important shapes you're going to see in the next 10 years. This is currently what income distribution in the UK looks like. The top 1% have 40%. Right? The top 10% have got about 80%. And all the rest of the people fight over the rest. Right? This isn't just income distribution in the UK. This is income distribution in your industry. In your industry, the top performers, the key people of influence, are making exponentially more than the rest of the people. Paul McKenna makes exponentially more than other hypnotherapists. Yeah? His business turns over 20, 30 million a year. Right? And most hypnotherapists are trying to turn over 20 or 30,000 a year. Right? So these key people of influence who get it right, they absolutely shift the whole market. It used to be the 80-20 rule, didn't it? So it used to be that the top 20% had 80% and the bottom 80% had 20%. Well, it's not that anymore. It's the top 10% have got like 80, 90%. Because they're able to reach further. If they're genuinely more remarkable, if they've got the right product, they can get it into more people's hands. So one of the things we must be focused on, if you are not a key person of influence in your industry, your full-time job must be to become a key person of influence in your industry. Now if we take this shape here and we look at it a little bit different, if I turn it into like a bell curve, imagine this is the industry, and in the center of the industry are our key people of influence. And on the outskirts of the industry, we have some different people. Let's have a look at this shape as though it was a circle and we're looking down on it from above. And let's imagine it looks a bit like this, as we look down on it from above. Here's how every industry works. This is how your industry works. On the outskirts of your industry, you'll find very excited people who I call newbies. Right? In the next layer is the vast majority of people, and I call these people the worker bees. They go to work in your industry. Right? They earn normal money. They earn sort of 30 to 60,000. Some industries the normal money is 50 to 100,000. Some industries it's 20 to 40,000. But it's in that kind of normal zone. Right? It's not going to make anyone spit their food out if you tell them how much you earn at a restaurant. Right? And then at the center of every industry, we find our key people of influence who earn exponentially more. Now here's what happens on a regular basis. Worker bees who aren't aware of how their industry works like this, they say, my industry is the problem. I want an easier life, and the thing that's holding me back is my industry isn't lucrative enough. Has anyone heard someone say, oh, my industry, there's a problem with my industry, there's not enough money in my industry? It's hilarious because I hear people like hypnotherapists say, oh, there's no money in hypnotherapy. Right? I say, well, go talk to Paul McKenna and ask him. Right? Oh, there's no money as a life coach. Go talk to Tony Robbins. Right? But they say, oh, it's my industry that's at fault. My industry is the problem. So they begin the opportunistic lifestyle, the merry-go-round of distraction. And they go from worker bee to newbie, and they feel excited again. And then they end up as a worker bee again. So they go newbie, worker bee, newbie, worker bee, newbie, worker bee. Ah, it's stock market trading. That's the thing with all the money. Ah, it's not stock market trading. It's property investing. It's business coaching. It's multi-level marketing. Right? And they go around and around and around never getting even close to being a key person of influence in any particular field, right? Because they're being opportunistic. And the opposite of that is staying still long enough to become a key person of influence. And the power of influence comes from being visible, connected, credible, and valuable as a key person of influence in the inner circle of the industry you absolutely love. Find the place where you'd love to be sitting there. You'd love to be in that industry. You'd love to talk about it. You'd love to write about it. You're not watching the clock thinking it's 5 o'clock, I want to get out of this. Find the industry that you don't want to retire from. If you're thinking about this would be a good industry to make passive income, it's probably the wrong industry. Because passive income is predicated on the idea that you want to make money out of doing something that you don't want to be doing. Right? For most people, that's the case. Some people have a different way of approaching it. But because when you find yourself here, I call these people here performers. Performers are extremely good at what they do. They're very functional. You give them the job, they can get it done. They're right on that edge of being someone who's respected, someone who's valuable, but they're still functional. And if you make the subtle shifts, and I'll talk about them tonight, I'll actually give you a 5-step formula for making this subtle shift. It's not that hard for your income to double or triple. When you're in the top 20% and you move to the top 10%, your income more than doubles. If you go to the top 5%, it's 2 or 3 or 4 times what it used to be. But you've got to start with something that you're a performer at. Start where your story has already brought you. Start where you're already reliable, where you're already highly functional, where people already trust that you're good at that. And then I'll show you tonight how you actually make the switch and become a key person of influence in that particular field. And this is incredibly unique because over the past industrial revolution, the key people of influence were fixed. It's a new thing that we can actually become and orchestrate and engineer ourselves as key people of influence. The KPIs of the past were born into the right family, attended the right schools, and got very lucky breaks. That was the KPIs of the past. Today we can orchestrate it. We can engineer it. We can stack things in our favour. There is a land grab going on right now because things have been shaken up so much that people are able to re-grab and reclaim the value that they create. Right? So this is an interesting time in history. So the future is very different, and I want to share with you an example as to why the future is going to be so different. And it's an example that puts you into the position. I want you to imagine that you're a 17 or 18-year-old kid. You've just left high school. You're seeing friends, older friends who've been through university, they can't get a job. And you're thinking, what do I do with my life? And you're sitting at mum and dad's house and you think, well, I've only got a couple of £100 at my disposal. That's the most I could get together. I'm going to start a business with next to no money. Right? So imagine this. And when you think about this, just realise that at no other time in history would this be possible. Let's have a look at what you could do as an 18-year-old starting a business today with almost no money. So let's say you go looking for a niche and you start with your passion, start with some interests, and you go looking to find how big a niche is or how wide or how valuable a niche is. Well, let's say you've got a passion for collecting the fruit stickers off apples. You could go to the Fruit Sticker Appreciation Society group on Facebook. You'd find that there's only 92 other freaks like you. So probably not going to be the place where you make your next million. So you think, okay, well, I'm good looking and I'm interested in science. We're scientists and we're sexy. Well, this group has 20,500 members. Right, so yeah, okay, there's a niche in that, maybe. So you say, I'm going to start a business with this. I'm going to go off and I'm going to poll the market and conduct a poll for free to ask the market, what do you want? What are you interested in? What frustrations do you have? What's upsetting you? What are you trying to get done that you're not currently able to get done? What products are you after that you can't find? And you ask them in a poll and you get some results and you get some interesting ideas. These polls used to cost tens of thousands of pounds 10 to 20 years ago. And now they're free of charge. You develop a product. Maybe you develop a low-cost, high-value information product and make that for them. Maybe you source a product from Asia. You go to Alibaba.com and you have a look at over 1,000 different factories and check out the different products that could be available. Every person in this room could have their own brand of snowboard, their own brand of television, their own brand of lingerie if you want to. All you'd need to do is go to the factory virtually, talk to them on Skype, send them through your brand, and they'll build it for you. If I wanted to, within a couple of weeks, I could have my own brand of television. Right? Key televisions of influence. No news, blocking the news out. Okay. Here's another interesting one. It's never been easier to write a book. This is Mindy Gibbons-Klein. She's a brilliant book coach. She's helped over 300 people write their book. Now, what's fascinating is that 10 to 20 years ago, if you wrote a book, you had bookshops to go and sell it in. And bookshops only want generic titles that go out to a mass market. And that meant that you needed a book agent who could help decide whether your book was right to take to a publisher. You needed a publisher to print enough and distribute them. You needed a network of bookstores. Having a book was difficult business 10 to 20 years ago. And today, if you write a book, no matter how niche the topic, it can go out to a worldwide market and deliver to anywhere on the planet, thanks to Amazon. Right? And when somebody Googles you and it comes up that you're an author, right, what do you think that does to your status as a key person? Absolute great credibility. You can print books one at a time these days. You used to have to print thousands. Right? You got worldwide distribution. You can build a brand for next to nothing. This is a friend of mine, their website builds brands for people for about £20 or £30 to help build a full brand with a brand values guideline, understanding what it is you're trying to communicate and then creating the right fonts and symbols that communicate those values. That's the sort of thing that people used to pay £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 for. There's a London-based company called Vendor that has a sub-brand called Power, P-O-W-A, and they build web stores for people for £30 or £40 a month. Their software costs £6 million to develop. I mean, imagine if you could go and find a store that someone spent £6 million developing and rent it for £30 a month. Who'd do that? Right? We all would. Right? Well, you can do that. You can go and hop into the busiest supermarket in the world right now. You can put your products there for no cost. I mean, who here would love to be able to walk down to Westfield Shopping Centre with your products and start sticking them onto the shelves, right, of someone else's busy store? Well, that's what eBay does. It allows you to do just that. It used to be very difficult to accept payment, and now that problem is solved. 24/7 payment gateways. It used to be difficult to get beautiful design, and now you can tap into designers all over the world. It used to be difficult to get your legals done, and now there's a UK company that has over 1,200 legal templates available for £99. It used to be difficult to outsource to foreign countries, and now there's a website that allows you to do that at the touch of a button. You used to need an office manager to direct workflow, and now there's a platform for about £20 or £30 a month that does that. It used to be that if you wanted to communicate with people, you had to pick up the phone and rack up a phone bill. And now you can have video conferences with people all over the world free of charge, thanks to Skype. It used to be that you had to do your own marketing and build your own list. Now you can tap into affiliate marketers and affiliate networks where they sell your products first and then collect a commission after the sale's been made. You can now promote your products with videos, blogs, tweets, podcasts, communities, fan pages, ebooks, photos, links, slides, all of that completely free of charge. Who's seen the movie The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise? Do you remember the last scene? The proud warrior samurai their traditional methods for battle, dressed in their beautiful shining armour with their beautiful weaponry. And they go charging out into the battlefield, swords drawn, right, the way it's been done for hundreds of years. And on the other side of the battlefield is a fumbling 22-year-old trying to figure out which way the bullets go into the gatling gun. And he's sitting there stressing out, going, how do these bullets go into the gatling gun? And drum, 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 the samurai are charging across, and then click. He goes, this is how the bullets go into the gatling gun. He grabs the handle and he goes, dum, 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 and down go the samurai. And that's where we are in history right now. There are 22-year-olds who are trying to figure out how the bullets go into the gatling gun. And I just showed you how they go into the gatling gun, by the way. Right? Luckily, they're not here. Right? What I just showed you is a pretty seamless convergence of a whole heap of technology, thousands of websites that are out there. I've filtered them out, put them all together in a gatling gun formation, and showed you one way to build a global small business architecture in 1 week with no money. Right? Now, we are in a point in history where people are figuring this stuff out every single day. And the proud samurai doing business the way they've always done business. Oh, we've always taken out a Yellow Pages ad. We've always had an ad in the Metro. Right? Doing business the old way. Oh, we just do brand advertising. Right? And they're about to get eaten by people who are doing it a very different way. The other thing that this means is that there's never been a better time to become a key person of influence. There's never been a better time to build a global small business. To build a global small business, you must become a key person of influence. Global small businesses are building up around key people. Key people of influence have always been the key. Steve Jobs gets sick and Apple shares dip by 6%. A $65 billion a year company, on the rumour that Steve Jobs is sick, drops 6%. On the rumour. They got 50,000 staff. Right? Key people. Right? Great businesses build up around key people. You must become a key person of influence in the next 10 years. Or sooner, much sooner. And here's the formula. The first thing to become a key person of influence, and you definitely want to write this stuff down, is you must perfect your pitch for a micro niche. When someone asks you, what do you do? What are you up to in the world? You've got to know your micro niche. And then you've got to be able to explain it in a way that's engaging, enrolling, results orientated, that hooks people or polarizes them and says, I'm not interested in that. Let me give you some examples. Here's a guy who knew how to pitch, and a guy who had a very specific niche that he was after. He knew there were many different problems in the world, but he addressed one key problem and he pitched it beautifully, and he changed the world as a result. Right? So pitching for a micro niche. Here's a friend of mine, Jeremy Gilly. Who's seen his film? A few people. He created a film called The Day After Peace. He wanted to create world peace, but he knew he couldn't create 365 days of peace. So he went to the United Nations and said, can we get September 21st as a fixed calendar date for world peace? And they created a day of ceasefire and non-violence, and he got that through and passed by the United Nations, and he's rolling out September 21st as a day of peace and non-violence. He started with a niche. How did Facebook start? Did Facebook say we're for everyone?
Students.
They said that not even students. It was even smaller than that.
Harvard.
Harvard students. You must have a harvard.edu account if you want to join Facebook. And then they expanded Harvard and Yale. And then university students, and then 600 million more people. Right? But we've got to start with our micro niche. Right? That's how these battles are won. A mentor of mine, the creator of 3 multi-billion-pound businesses. And he starts with a perfect niche when he does this. I'm going to create the world's first telephone-only bank. First Direct. I'm going to create the world's first internet-only bank. Egg. Right? This guy knows how to do it. He knows how to pitch when it comes to getting across these micro niches. He says this: most businesses can't say what they're up to in the world, and yet it's the most important question they'll ever answer. How can you be in business if you can't say what you're up to in the world? How can you be even hoping to create a shred of value in the marketplace if you can't say what you're up to in the world? If you can't answer the question, what do you do with power and authority, right, there's no business. Right? Our Industrial Revolution schooling system didn't teach us this stuff. In fact, everything about that schooling system says you need to be a replaceable part in the business. We look at books like the E-Myth and we read them through the eyes of, I need to be a replaceable part in the business. And the book in the E-Myth is about systemizing and automating so that you can elevate yourself in the business. Not so you can be a replaceable part. He uses the example of McDonald's. And yet Ray Kroc saw himself as the vital, beating heart of that business. He lived and breathed McDonald's all of his life. He didn't try to be a replaceable part of the business. He tried to be the key person driving the business. He made it part of their franchise model that if you own a McDonald's franchise, you can't own other franchises. You've got to be totally in that business. You've got to be a irreplaceable part of your franchise. Right? Systems, automation, they're there to elevate you, not to make you replaceable. On our graph that I showed you, that income distribution graph, the people who earn huge amounts of money, are they replaceable or are they irreplaceable? They're irreplaceable. The people who earn down the far end, they're super replaceable. You find anyone to do the job. You've got to become an irreplaceable person. The word vital means irreplaceable and full of life. Key people of influence are vital people. They're not functional, replaceable people. And they can pitch what they do. So step 1 is the ability to know a micro niche and pitch it better than anyone else is pitching it. Step 2, publish your ideas. As you can hear, I have an accent that's not from around here. I have an accent of someone from Clapham. Before that, it was Australian. And I grew up in a country that was very much defined by the agricultural age because it was colonised in the agricultural age. The wealthiest people in Australia were the first settlers who claimed land. So we hear about these people in school, the first settlers who claim land. There was a second group of people. They were called swagmen. Has anyone heard the song, Once a Jolly Swagman? Right? About the guy who doesn't claim any land, he just goes wandering from piece of land to piece of land, never settling anywhere. And the swagmen were broke, and the people who stopped in one space and said, this is where you'll find me, this is my land, became incredibly wealthy. And they pegged their land out. They said, this is my land, this is where it starts, this is where it finishes, this is my land here. They settled that land. Now in the ideas economy, the first settlers are the ones who claim the niches and the micro niches. When you claim a niche, that's your land. When you claim micro niches, that's your land. Now, in the same way that in the agricultural economy, you needed to show the title deed that pegged out your land, in the ideas economy, when you publish your work, you're actually creating a title deed to your land. Does that make sense? Your book or the articles that you publish actually say, here's where you find me. Right? In the agricultural economy, the bank didn't want to see the land, they wanted to see the piece of paper. They wanted to say, I can see that you've got this piece of land because I can see it pegged out on this piece of paper, the title deed. In the ideas economy, people don't want to hear you just pointing, oh, that's my land over there. They want to see the title deed to that land. It's your book. It's your articles. One of my clients wrote a set of articles about the Spitfire, the plane in World War II. And he said in his articles, I've got a dream to create a working squadron of Spitfires with ground crew and everyone dressed in World War II uniforms, and we build a squadron of Spitfires and we learn to fly them, and everyone invests at their level into this Spitfire project. That went around the world within a matter of weeks, and over 300 people came back to him and said, I want to be part of the Spitfire project. So he claimed that little piece of land. No one had claimed it before. Right? I got a client who I'll show you a photo of. She said, I'm the most passionate woman in the plumbing industry. I love the fact that women can be plumbers. And she wrote a book about it, and everything has changed. She used to be just passionate about it, and now she's getting all sorts of opportunities because she published about it. Publishing, you can do a book of interviews, you can put your take on things, you can give your thought leadership, you can do your top tips, you could do a picture book if you're in fashion or food or something like that. My book coach is a woman called Mindy Gibbons-Klein. Mindy has helped over 300 people, close to 400 people actually, become authors. She has learnt so much about why people get stuck. She has a process called mapping 4 layers deep, where she gets people to think about their book and then map it out and then map 4 layers deep underneath that. It's a really interesting process. And then when it comes time to write the book, it's so easy. You actually just start at your map and you just go around and you write. And it's so easy. It's all there ready for you. And when you do this process, writing your book becomes a breeze. Most people get stuck on 10,000 words with their book. Her clients just go right round and finish and publish a book within about 12 weeks. Right, she's really, really good at what she does. And she says, your book is your avatar. It goes out and shares your message with the world for you. It's a really important idea. It's equally true for a set of articles. But there's something about being an author. It's no coincidence that the word authority has the word author in it. It's the author of that topic. Here's Hattie. For a long time it was just me who had the message about women being plumbers, and now it's me and my book. And because her book is out there, she's done book launches, she's been on radio now, she's spoken at events, she's now being asked to write in a trade magazine called Plumbers and Fitters and Boilermakers magazine or something like that. And she's very proud of this actually. She's like, this is a great magazine. And she's in the magazine. And she wrote the book The Joy of Plumbing. And it's all about how to do what you really, really, really want to do. It's a great book. She used to be a school teacher, and she realised she was only a school teacher because her parents wanted to be a school teacher, and what she really wanted to do was be in a trade. And she loved water, she loved plumbing, she became a plumber, and she's the most passionate plumber you'll ever find. Right? It's a really great book about her story. And another note on that, on a side note, her book is so powerful because it's one of the only things I've seen in the last 5 or 10 years that tells girls that there's other things other than being an heiress and being a model and being a wag and all that sort of stuff, right? Like the media is just constantly on about one message, one type of woman, and she's a completely different type of woman who's happy and having a great life and, you know, sharing joy with the world. And it's really powerful that more books like that get out there. Step 3. Produce a product. Even more importantly, have a product strategy. So product strategy is really vital. Product strategy means that you have free products. You have products for prospects, as Darren Sherlaw would say. You have a core product that offers a full, remarkable solution to a problem. And you have secondary products that solves the new problems that your core product freed up the space for them to arrive. Most business owners have a core product and they make the classic small business mistake of running around talking about their core product. My core product is accounting, so they run around talking about, I'm an accountant, come and do your accounting with me. Classic small business error. Bigger businesses have a core product and they run around talking about their product for prospects. Because they understand that people don't just take a big jump and spend $5,000 on the first date. Right? Or $10,000 on the first date, or $100,000 on the first date. Right? There's a gradual progression. People want to have a quick win to test you out. They actually today want to spend up to 7 hours with you for free. The businesses that are hugely successful are running around talking about their free products. When was the last time you saw Google advertise, come and spend money with us? Right? They're creating frictionless transactions. No money, just come and enjoy what we do. Spend hours with us free of charge. But there's a ramp. Great businesses have a product ecosystem. Apple has a product ecosystem. What do most people get for free before they've even got an Apple product? iTunes. They download iTunes and then they start buying music. 79p per song. And then they realise they've got to have an iPod. And then I've got to have an iPad and a MacBook. And then I've got to become a raving fan and replace everything in my house that I can with Apple and tell everyone that I love Apple so much. The other classic mistake that small businesses make is they become human repetition robots. They go around saying the same thing again and again and again and again. And they don't productize it. They don't film it, turn it into a product. Right? They don't record it and get it out there. They just go and say the same thing again and again and again and again. I've seen clients who take the same stuff they always say to clients and turn it into a valuable product. One of our clients is a personal trainer. And he used to tell men all the time, here's the 7 reasons why you're not losing weight. Right? If you're a man, these are the 7 things I see all the time why you're not going to lose any weight. And he created a product. 7 reasons men fail to lose body fat. Right? And it was the same stuff he was saying over and over and over again. And he turned it into a product, and it's a valuable part of his business. Now, rather than running around saying, oh, I do personal training, I do personal training, I do personal training, he says, hey, I got a CD. It's called 7 Reasons Men Fail to Lose Body Fat. Are you interested in that? Oh yeah, I'm interested in that. Right? Creates that initial transaction. Right? And that builds the business for him. He doesn't have to run around saying, sign up for my core business. And it means that he's actually been able to put his prices up because by the time they've listened to the CD, they realise that he's so knowledgeable, they only want to work with him. I'll give you another example. Not a client, but a guy who I know was brilliant at computer technology. One of the people that you'd ring up and you'd say, hey, can you come and do some fixing? He was actually one of these guys who could do programming and all that sort of stuff. He was passionate. He was writing articles about why software is the future and why software shouldn't necessarily be free all the time. And rather than taking his knowledge and becoming an IT consultant, like many people in that time did, he took what he knew and he put it in a box. And he made more money with his knowledge in a box. Right? Bill Gates. Now this message here, this photo says, what do you know that you can put in a box? Who here has ever solved a problem in the last 3 years? You've had a problem, you've solved it. Who's done that? Hands right up. That's a product. Who here knows how to solve a problem that other people don't know how to solve? That's a product. You're already sitting on a mountain of value. You're already sitting on a mountain of products. Right? If you start producing them. Take what you know and put it in a box. Products spread your ideas. They build your brand. They create value. They never sleep. And products bring you constant streams of opportunity. Right? That's what you want. You could do a set of interviews. Some of you are sitting there saying, oh, well, I'm not sure if I have all the knowledge. Well, you could go and interview the people with the knowledge and make an even more valuable product. You could record a workshop. Many people here have been able to give a workshop. You could record that workshop and turn it into a product. You could record a live event and turn that into a product. You could create an audiobook. So if you've written a book, you could turn it into an audiobook, make that a product. You already have talents and skills that other people want to know about. Many people I see feel that they have no value, and they go running around attending workshops thinking that, oh, if I just learn that thing and become a newbie at that thing, then I'll make the money. So they feel they don't have the value, so they go off and they do a course on some new thing. Right? And I'm telling you, you're already on a mountain of value, but like most people, because you live with yourself 24/7, it turns into a blur. Right? You're not recognizing just how valuable you are to other people, right? Because it's such a blur. I could probably sit opposite you over lunch and go, oh my goodness, really? You know about this, you know about this, you know about this? And you go, yeah, but doesn't everyone? Right? You'd take it for granted, some of the things that you know. Right? And there's product in that. One of my mentors, Darren Sherlaw, his company's worth over £40 million. He's an IP expert. He used to be a fund manager. He took a multi-billion pound fund from the 37 out of 42 performing funds to the second top performing fund in 2 years. So his background was in fund management. He intimately knows balance sheets and spreadsheets and P&Ls. He really understands how they relate to a whole business. He left the fund management world and set up Sherlaw's Coaching and Navitas IP, where he helps companies to identify their valuable intellectual property and to turn it into product. Now his business now has 200 consultants in 9 different countries, more than 200 consultants in 9 different countries, and as I said, it's worth over more than £40 million. So he's a mentor, and he says this, his whole business is based around this idea as a central concept. Income follows assets. Income follows assets. If you have a vacant block of land and you say, I want to rent out this vacant block of land, right? It's difficult to rent it out because it's a vacant block of land. If you put a 2-bedroom house in it, no matter how great you are at sales and marketing, there's actually just a very normal band of income that 2-bedroom house can earn. If you put a 4-bedroom house, the income goes up. If you put a commercial shopping centre on it, the income goes up. As you develop the asset, the income follows the assets. We think that income follows sales and marketing. Sales and marketing is only there to alert people of the asset and to have them understand the asset, to find the right people for the right asset. The reason that a surgeon earns more than a McDonald's employee is because they have an asset called intellectual property that shows up in form of a skill set. So their asset is their skill set, their intellect, what they know. It's not because they have more fingers and toes. They just have invested into an asset called a skill set. Now, what happens is that every person here has got valuable intellectual property that hasn't been productized yet. There's things that you know, but you haven't put them into a framework. You haven't segmented them out into free product, product for prospects, core business, second sale stuff. And yet the more asset you create, the more income you'll have. If you take what you know, turn it into a book, your income goes up. Turn it into a product, your income goes up. Turn it into a licensable model, your income goes up. As you create more asset, you create more income. Does that make sense? Literally, companies pay Darren tens of thousands of pounds per day to fully understand what that means for their business. That one sentence. The fourth step. Yes? Oh, intellectual property. Your most valuable asset is your intellectual property. In the ideas economy, intellectual property is way more valuable than bricks and mortar. You could spend 6 months building a house or 6 months building a franchise system or a licensable model, and in this day and age, the intellectual property business can scale faster, grow bigger, and produce way more income than a bricks and mortar business. So that's the most valuable asset in the ideas age. So step 4 is to raise your profile, to make a name for yourself. I was in Sydney at the beginning of this year, and I went walking with a friend in Sydney, and we were walking around Sydney Harbour. And as we were walking past these huge houses and penthouses, he's saying, that guy's a famous architect. The person who has that house there is a really well-known property developer. That person is a really well-known interior designer. That's Russell Crowe's house, really well-known actor. Right? And we're walking along, and the same words came up. Renowned, well-known, famous, great reputation. There was a direct correlation between huge houses and having a great name for yourself. When somebody Googles you, what comes up? 20 to 30 years ago, or 10 to 20 years ago, if you wanted to raise your profile, you had to go see this guy. Old media meant that there was just a few channels broadcasting to millions of people each. So a small select group of people could dominate the airwaves and capture everyone's attention. If they had radio, they had television, they had newspapers and magazines. That was about it. Right? And each one was just a few channels of distribution going to millions of people each. Today's different. In new media, it's opposite. Just 5 years after it was invented, the democratization of the media means there are now millions of channels broadcasting to a few people each. Which means within your niche, you can become the key person of influence. And you don't have to go through old media. You don't have to buy millions of eyeballs at a time. You can just get in there and talk directly to your marketplace. Social media is as revolutionary as the printing press. This revolution, the printing press, was a revolution because of 2 reasons. It lowered the cost to reproduce information, and it lowered the cost to disseminate information. Social media has done exactly those 2 things by just as much as the printing press did. The printing press created an entire revolution, and so does social media. In the next 15 years, this is the game changer to democratize the media. We talked about it. You can promote your ideas in so many different ways. A friend and a mentor of mine, Penny Power, she started Academy 13 years ago. She saw it at the beginning of the wave. Today, she has 500,000 members as part of her website. She advises government on Digital Britain. She created the Digital Manifesto for Britain. Right? She's an absolute legend, hugely respected, because what she doesn't know about social media is really not worth knowing. And she says this to me: today people believe you are who Google says you are. When I read your tweets, that's me understanding your brand. When I read your blogs, that's me understanding your brand. When I Google your name, that's me understanding your personal brand. Right? You may think that you have a certain personal brand, but most people believe that you are who Google says you are. Now here's the thing. Some people here absolutely love doing traditional public relations, traditional PR. Let me ask you a question. Let's say you pay your PR agent $5,000 a month for 3 months, typical PR fees, and they go ringing journalists and tell them about you. What's the first thing the journalist does? They Google you. So if you haven't got this stuff right, if you haven't got a great profile, even spending the $5,000 a month on traditional PR it doesn't get maximized. Step 5, forge partnerships. This is definitely the money step. My distribution list, Ron's brand, Harun's products. Let's get together and talk about that. Have a look at the big companies. They take Roger Federer. They take Nike. They make the products in a Chinese factory. Right? It's a joint venture. Right? It's partnerships. Here's a question. Who could you partner with where every time someone signed up to their service, they also got an introduction to your service? If you had 100 partnerships like that, what would happen to your business? Here's another question. Who has 10,000 perfect clients on their database for you? Who woke up this morning with a hard drive that contains a list of 10,000 of your potential clients? Because someone did. Here's a question. Who woke up this morning with an absolutely brilliant product that would benefit from your brand or your distribution? Who woke up this morning with an incredible brand but is lacking the product they need, and you've got the product? Right? The most valuable tube station in London is not the oldest, not the most expensive to build, it's the most well-connected. The most well-connected is the most valuable. Let that map be a reminder. When you see that map, think the most valuable is the most well-connected. You could do product bundling. You could swap distribution lists, legally and ethically, of course. Right? I mail my list an offer about you, you mail your list an offer about me. You could have an affiliate program. You could team up with others in your industry to create more high-value products or high-value lists. You could team up to do that sort of stuff. Partnerships. Leverage your time, create consistency, increase your value. They safeguard your marketplace, and they make life a lot more fun. A mentor of mine and a great friend is a guy called Steve Bolton. Steve has built the fastest growing franchise in the country 3 years running. They've sold something like 100 franchises in the last 3 years. His franchise partners control over £300 million worth of property. He has a franchise business called Platinum Property Partners, a multi-award winning franchise business. And he said he made a shift. And the shift happened when he A, saw himself as being the key person of influence in his industry, and B, when he made the shift from saying there's no such thing as a self-made millionaire. You must partner your way to wealth. He said prior to that shift, he was trying to do it all on his own. I'll build the list, I'll build the brand, I'll build the property portfolio, I'll build the product. And then he said, what if I just start working and create partnership models? And his business just took off. Right? And he is now a genius. I'd consider him a genius at forming partnerships. He's just so good at going out and finding the right person and getting them enrolled. He came and enrolled me in the idea of doing some fundraising last year, and we easily and effortlessly raised over £200,000 by creating a partnership patrons program for that particular charity. Right? And it was easy because we worked in partnership. We enrolled 5 or 6 of the country's most famous entrepreneurs to get involved and partner with us. Right? We enrolled venues and members clubs. Right? We got everyone partnering for this successful result. So here's the 5 steps. Pitch, publish, productize, profile, raise your profile, and 5, form partnerships. Examples. Let's have a look at some real-life examples of real-life clients of mine who have implemented these 5 steps and had a radical transformation in their business. Let's have a look. When I first met this gentleman, who I'm about to show you now, I asked him, what do you do? And he said, I'm a personal trainer. And I said, okay, how much are you? And he proudly said, and a bit sheepishly said, I'm £50 per hour. I said, really, £50 per hour? Is that higher than most? He goes, yeah, most trainers are £35 per hour. I said, well, what makes you different? And he said, well, I'm a multi-award winning bodybuilder personal trainer. That's actually what he looks like. Right. And I said, you're really, really good at what you do, and you only make £50 an hour. And he said, yeah, but that's much higher than most of my colleagues in this industry. That's pretty good for my industry. I said, well, that sounds pretty rubbish. He said, well, how do I adopt this formula to make it work? And I said, well, let's start with your pitch. An industrial revolution pitch tries to make you as replaceable as possible. I'm an accountant. Take me out, put another accountant in, works just the same. I'm a personal trainer. Take me out, put another personal trainer in, and it'll work just the same. I'm a lawyer. Take me out, take any lawyer in, it'll work just the same. That's industrial revolution paradigm. So I said, that's not going to work for you as a key person of influence. When somebody asks you, what do you do? From now on, here's what you say. I do radical 12-week body transformations with top-level London business people who achieve amazing things in the boardroom and ordinary things in the bedroom.
No good for Tiger Woods then.
No. That's one of his clients before. This is the same guy 12 weeks later.
Oh my God.
This is one of his clients before. This is 12 weeks later.
What's the address?
Oh my God. That's amazing.
It's 12-week transformations. He does radical 12-week body transformations. He's not a personal trainer anymore. If you go to Lazo Freeman and say, I want personal training, he say, I don't do personal training. I do radical 12-week body transformations. Right? Oh, but I just want to work out with someone once or twice a week. Don't do that. I do radical 12-week body transformation. Right? So that's his pitch is different. He's about to release his book, which has been delayed because he's got a great publishing deal that's just come through, and it's called Look the Business, perfectly positioning him for his marketplace. Right? He's publishing. He's been writing new blogs. He's been writing new material. And his book comes out next month. He created a product, a DVD product, where he teamed up with a film producer and some other body transformation experts and took 12 people over 12 weeks and transformed their body and filmed it on DVD. And it's called Detoxicize. It's got Vivian, who's a detox expert. It's got Lazo, who's a bodybuilding expert. And on this DVD, you can actually see people go through a radical transformation. And that sells all day, every day on Amazon. And it brings in loads of people. He productized. He raised his profile on social media, recorded DVDs and videos on YouTube, has thousands of views now. Set up a Facebook profile, has 1,300 very targeted people who are now his friends on Facebook, who fit his demographic. Right? And they get it that he does 12-week body transformations just by visiting his profile. He went and did partnerships. So I told you about the partnership that he did to produce his product, but he also went and partnered with a sports supplement company called USN. He now gets thousands of pounds and heaps of exposure as a result of being a sponsored representative of that company. He just got flown to Berlin to speak at a fitness conference as a result of that partnership. And guess what happened to his business? I heard a few people see those photos and say, oh, what's his phone number? Well, here's the punchline. Lazo only has 18 clients a year now. A 12-week radical body transformation costs £10,000. Some people say, what's the guarantee? And here's his guarantee. You pay £10,000 and you pay on top of that a £2,000 deposit. When you get your body transformation done in 12 weeks, you get the $2,000 back. If you don't do the transformation because you cheat, you've damaged my brand and I take that $2,000 off you as damages. And he gets it. Right? He gets the 12 grand. Right? He gives back the 2 because he always gets the result. Right? Now he went from working his tail off for £50 an hour, making about 40 to 50 grand a year, thinking it was good, to he made the leap from being functional to vital and makes over £180,000 a year with just 18 clients. Right? Because he's a key person of influence. What's interesting is that it started almost straight away. The minute he had a better pitch, the following week he was signing up clients at double. His first client, he didn't believe that he could charge that much at first. His first client, he said, oh, I'm 4 grand. I'm 5 grand. I'm 8 grand. I'm 10 grand. Right? But it was literally within weeks, just by answering the question, what do you do differently? Just by going through the process of figuring out where are you not functional and replaceable and where are you vital and irreplaceable, and how do you explain that to others? Give you another example. I met Simon Dixon a few years ago and he was seriously working his guts out. He worked out that he spent the first 3 weeks of the month just working non-stop to pay all of his overheads, and the final week of the month was his profit and his tax. Right? So he was working all month to earn for about 3 days a month, 3 or 4 days a month. Right? Really ridiculous stuff. Burning out, costing him relationships, making him feel tired, losing his passion for what he did. So I said to him when I met him, what do you do? He said, I'm a recruitment consultant. I do recruiting consulting. I'm functional and replaceable from the Industrial Revolution. I said, not going to cut it in the entrepreneur revolution. So if you ask him today, what do you do, Simon? He'll say, I only work with university students and graduates who want a career in banking and finance and who want to go from student to CEO as fast as they can. Ambitious banking and finance students. Right? That's all he works with. You can't go and say, oh, I want a career in marketing. I want a career in some other profession. You can't say, I've been in banking and finance for 10, 15 years and now I want to upgrade my career. You've got to be a university student or a new graduate who wants a career in banking and finance and who's thinking about going from student to CEO. That's his market now. He wrote the book, From Student to CEO, 97 Ways to Influence Your Way to the Top in Banking and Finance, perfectly positioning him as the authority in his niche. He took the same spiel that he was giving to every graduate one-to-one and turned it into product. So he would sit down with graduates and he would talk to them about their career, give them advice, give them things, give them ways to improve their chances. All that intellectual property he just took for granted, he recorded it and he stuck it into product. And that product now sells on his website for £97 as a download or £129 as a physical product that they mail to you. It's the spiel that he used to do for free. He used to sit there for hours giving away this stuff to try and win over clients. He's turned it into product, all the best of his knowledge. He went out and got himself web famous through social media, uploaded videos on all sorts of news topics and all sorts of relevant issues, created a blog, and then he put the money step in place with the joint ventures. He created an affiliate system where banking and finance students on campus could earn money by recommending his career-building products to people that they know. He signed up 360 joint venture partners, students on campus, in 2 months. He then got rid of his entire sales team and outsourced it to his 360 joint ventures. All they have to do is send people through their unique link to his website to download his £97 product. He sells 9 a day. So every single day, 7 days a week, except for exam week, £900 per day just goes ticking into his account, and he pays 30% as an affiliate commission. Right? So he's clearing more than £600 a day, every day, without opening his trap, without having to physically say a word. Right? Now, it's not the system. For the internet marketers in the room, it's not the system. Some people go, oh, what system did he use? Oh, which was the software that he used for that? It doesn't matter which is the software. There's loads of software. Anyone can access the software. It's the fact that they want to hear from him. He is the key person of influence in this. He's the author in this. He's the one who they Google him and his name comes up in this. He's the key person. They're willing to go and seek out the advice from the key person of influence. Right? He's now having people in New York wanting to replicate his model. Right? Bigger and bigger business going on. The problems people come up against is time wasting, expense, damaging their brand, no results, incompletions of projects, losing momentum. There is a dip that you've got to go through. There's a J curve here. Most people don't complete their book because writing a book's not easy. It's difficult to complete that job. When you get to the end of the first draft, it's actually about halfway through the project. Right? Most people don't realize that. Creating a great product, right, involves a little bit of work. There's a thing called a J curve. You've got to push through that little J curve before you go up. Left to our own devices, most of us don't get this stuff done. So let me share with you very, very quickly how we've solved this problem and how we've come up with a way to bring the right people together to help them to actually get these 5 things implemented really powerfully. So here's how we work with our clients, and I'll share this with you, and then what we'll do is we'll mingle, we'll chat, meet different people, and you can also have a look around this venue. But here's how it works. We've created the Key Person of Influence Accelerator program. You've got some information on your chairs about that program. It's a 30-week program, which is a GSD program. GSD. Get stuff done. This is not a learning experience. All the stuff you need to learn, we did lots of learning tonight. Tonight was a learning experience. The 30 weeks is an implementation experience. It's a GSD experience. It's all about getting stuff done. You know you're successful at doing the pitch workshop because you got your pitch. You know you're successful at doing the publishing because you published a book and articles. You know you're successful at the product creation stuff because you got a product at the end of it. So it's a get stuff done workshop. For pitching, you get to work directly with my mentor, Mike Harris, creator of 3 multi-billion-pound businesses. Some people in the room have an Egg credit card and a First Direct credit card. Right? Mike created both of those. He created Mercury One-to-One Communications, which is now T-Mobile. Sold it for a valuation of $10 billion, made $2.5 billion for the shareholders. Last business, Egg, he started it and 3 years later sold it for $1.3 billion. Mike doesn't do speaking outside of the KPI program. Right? He works at super high level innovation and he works with us. This is the only small business stuff that he does because he totally believes in the formula and he believes in the entrepreneur revolution. Right? This is a rare opportunity to work with Mike. Mindy, she's helped over 300 to 400 authors now. Working with Mindy is a couple of £1,000 to join just her little group on writing a book. To join one of her little groups. Her home study kit is £700. Right? It's all part of this program. Darren Sherlaw. Darren, if you want to work with a Sherlaw's coach, one of his 200 coaches, the minimum sign up is 30 grand a year for 2 years. That's one of the reasons Sherlaw's is completely different in the coaching space. Most coaches say, oh, I'm this much per hour or this much per month. These guys send you through an invoice for 60 grand. They say, if you want to get a result, it takes 2 years. We completely rebuild your whole business. Right? Darren doesn't do speaking outside of Sherlaws. You want to see Darren speak, you've got to be a Sherlaws coach. You've got to be a Sherlaws coaching client. Right? And he does his workshops with us. That's the only place outside of Sherlaws you'll find him doing his workshops. Because he totally believes in what we're up to in the world and he totally believes in the entrepreneur revolution. His one-day workshop is stunning. He gets you to unpack all your valuable intellectual property and turn it into framework. And when you turn it into framework, you get a whole spectrum of product. And it's just a brilliant, stunning one day that shocks people how much comes out in that one day. Right? Penny Power, she has her digital school, right? And it's a few £1,000s to join the digital school. Right? And she works with us as part of this program to put in place a social media strategy that's not gimmicky, it's not spammy, it's real deal building your brand online. It's real deal upping your profile online. Steve Bolton talks about partnerships. Steve doesn't do training outside of Platinum Property Partners. He only works with his franchises and us. That's it. Right? Built the fastest growing franchise business. There are many people in this room who would love to think of their business as expanding all over the country or all over the world by having other people license it or franchise it. He's done that. He'll show you how to do that sort of stuff. Right? So we've put together a 30-week training program with the most hard-to-reach top-level entrepreneurs in the country and put it together in a way where we focus on implementation, getting stuff done, right? We put you into accountability groups. We bring you together for momentum sessions. Right? We have GSD days where you get stuff done. And we measure our success on not whether you learnt something, but did you actually get that result? Is your pitch great? Did you publish? Have you now got great product? If I Google you, do you come up? Right? What partnerships do you have in place? That's how we measure the success. The whole experience is called Enough Learning, It's Time to Do It. That's the headline on the brochure there. Right? It's not just a learning experience. I believe this is a better experience than an MBA. Of course I'd say that. But the reason I say that is so many people have got an MBA now. There's loads of people with an MBA. There's not as many people with a book who are published authors. There's not people with product strategy. Out of China and India, thousands of people are getting MBAs every week. Right? This is something that I think sets people apart more than just, especially considering an MBA is 12 months full time and 20 to 30 grand, right? At least. Some people spend loads of money on, 3 months worth of PR fees at 3 to 5 grand per month, right? All trying to become key people. This 30-week program is £4,250 for the entire 30 weeks, work with all these people and get this stuff done in a high-impact accountability group. We break it up over different payments if you want to do that. Right? And it's only for 50 people. The reason it's only for 50 people is Mike Harris goes walking around one by one, listening to your pitch, refining your pitch. Right? Mindy works with people. Darren works with people. So it's for just 50 people at a time. Across industries, this is a powerful program. Adele was working at Deloitte as a change management consultant. She's taken her change management intellectual property and she's applied it to going through a divorce. She's now the 21-day divorce coach. She wrote the book called The Naked Divorce. And she created a great product for prospects called Find the Source of Your Divorce. And she applies Deloitte change management technology adapted for going through a divorce. It's really powerful stuff. Right? Sasha was about to quit her business and get a job as a PA. because she'd been working for 16 years as a florist and not making any money. Right? She's now the author of the book, Big Day, Small Budget. She's picking up really high-value wedding contracts. She's speaking in the women's prisons and teaching them flower arranging. She's speaking in corporate and teaching them flower arranging and doing team-building flower days. It all came out of the Perfect Pitch workshop. She's winning big business. She's created a product, how to do your own flower arranging. Right? And she's looking at doing a deal with QVC to sell the home flower arranging kit. And this is all within 12 months. Mike Symes was hugely successful. He had a business, a little agency, him and his business partner and 1 or 2 staff doing hundreds of thousands of pounds. But they had hit a glass ceiling. 3 or 4 years, no growth. Losing interest in the business. Wrote the book, Light Your Firebrand, reignited his own passion for his business, narrowed down on a niche, and has doubled the revenue of his business and doubled the profitability of his business in under 12 months, just by making himself the key person of influence. He said to me that he went to the pitch workshop with Mike, the following week walked out, pitched himself to a number of businesses, won more business in that week than he had in the previous couple of months, and then had people ringing him as a result of those pitches saying, I heard your pitch was amazing. Can I come into your office and hear what you could do for us? He said the pitch workshop was so effective that he no longer has to pitch anymore. Here's my final message. This photo is taken in my hometown, in the Glasshouse Mountains in the Sunshine Coast. There's a mountain range. 6 or 7 mountains all in a row. And the biggest one is Mount Tippergargan. This guy is standing on Mount Tippergargan. It takes 6 hours to climb, and this is the biggest one, by the way. When you're standing on Mount Tippergargan, the first thing you do is you look down and you see these rocks and weeds, and you remember the struggle of getting there for the last 6 hours. And then you look up, you see the most beautiful view, and the first thing that enters your mind is, gee, it would be amazing to climb that one. Gee, it would be amazing to climb that one. I wonder if anyone's climbed that one. It looks really hard. Right? And you're looking out there, you're admiring the view, and you don't realise you're standing on this massive mountain. You're on the biggest one. Right? You can see all the other mountains from the view. And it's an analogy I use with my clients. Most of them go looking out there and they see other business owners of value. They see, oh, Ron Holland, he's standing on a mountain of value. Right? Oh, James is standing on a mountain of value. Right? And they go, oh, I can see the mountain of value other people are standing on. But when they look at their own value, they just look down, they remember the struggle of how they got there. They see the rocks and the weeds beneath their feet. And they can't see the size or the shape and don't realise that they're actually standing on a huge mountain of value. So what we love doing with clients is helping our clients to acknowledge and realise just how massive the value is that they're already standing on, and to turn that into something real.